Listen, guys, summer is finally upon us, and I'm seeing far too many recipes for so-called Mai Tais circulating around the internet. Many of these are just so far wrong, morally bankrupt.
All that is wrong with the world.
Well, okay, maybe not quite that bad, but they're pretty far away from what we want it to be. And I'm pretty mad about it, so today we are here to fix that. A Mai Tai as a cocktail is not whatever you want it to be. It is a real drink with a real history and a very well-respected recipe, and I do not take lightly to people appropriating the good name of the Mai Tai for their own nefarious gain or their own specialty house Mai Tais. Or, equally, when I see tutorials all over YouTube of how to make Mai Tais and they're using the wrong rums, the wrong liqueurs, the wrong syrups, or God forbid, the wrong juices. A Mai Tai is called a Mai Tai for a very good reason. It means very good or excellent in Tahitian. And I can tell you now, some of these Mai Tai formulations I've been seeing around the place are very far from very good. Okay, but why am I making such a big deal about this? Well, that's because the Mai Tai has a real inventor who gave it a very well-respected recipe. And quite frankly, all of these appropriations of the name just feels pretty disingenuous to me. And I think it's really not that hard to get it right, as you'll see. The Mai Tai was invented by Victor J. Bergeron at his bar, Trader Vic's, which was also his pseudonym, in 1994 in California. Trader Vic's rival and contemporary, Don Beach, often claimed that the Mai Tai was simply an appropriation of one of Don Beach's own drinks, the QB Cooler, although these claims are very often disputed. Tiki was a brutal business world back then. But either way, Trader Vic presented his invention to a Tahitian friend of his who proclaimed, and I do apologise for my pronunciations, Mai Tai Roa A, which, as said before, basically means very good or excellent. And you can see where he got the name from then. Now, another addendum before we get started is that the initial base spirit for the Mai Tai was a Ray and Nephew 17-year-old rum, a product which has unfortunately since been discontinued for quite some time now. Some say this was as a direct result of the popularity of the Mai Tai, which is a nice thought. So in order to get around this issue, we're just going to use a blend of our own rum so we can simulate some of the age, some of that nice Jamaican rum funk, and also some of the other flavours we would have expected in there that might just, boost the drink up a little bit. And the first thing we are going to need is 1 ounce of lime juice. So the next thing we are going to need is something called orgeat syrup. Orgeat, and don't be intimidated by this, is just an almond syrup, and you can make this at home if you have the means to create your own almond milk. And from that point on, it's basically just an almond simple syrup. I've tried to make it before with store-bought almond milk and it hasn't worked very well, so this is just a pre-made orgeat. And we are going to need ½ ounce of this. Just a slight bar spoon. And the next thing we are going to need is something called orange curacao. The best stuff on the market, and I think many people will agree with me, is Pierre Ferrand's dry curacao. A curacao is basically an orange liqueur, so if you're able to get, a high quality triple sec, something like Grand Marnier, that will also go great in here. I would maybe stay away from like a Cointreau. It's a little bit too tart for me, but if you really can't find anything else, then I know I've talked about wrong ingredients, but you know what? If you can't get anything else, then it's going to be just fine. So we'll also need ½ ounce of this. And now comes the issue of rums. Now, as we said before, the Ray and Nephew 17-year-old rum doesn't exist anymore, so we're going to need to simulate some of those big, bold flavours in there. And just before we start, if I
Ever catch anyone making a Mai Tai with this, there will be consequences.
I'm joking. But anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to do 2 ounces of rum total, and the first ounce that we're going to do is of Jamaican rum. So we are going to use ½ ounce of Smith & Cross strong overproof, well, not quite overproof, but a strong Jamaican rum. Smith & Cross is just this enormous, bold flavour profile. So we're going to balance it out with a bit of Appleton Estate Signature, which is more of a mellow, more well-rounded Jamaican rum. Then we're going to want some of those other adjacent flavours to that, and for me, the best Mai Tai formulation that I can come up with for the rum base then goes for half an ounce of a demerara rum. And then the International Bartenders Association also says we should use a Martinique rum. Now, usually they're referring to an amber Martinique rum. Unfortunately, I simply cannot afford that. They're really quite expensive here in the United Kingdom. But luckily, I do have a bottle of this rum agricole blanc, and I think this is going to do the trick just nicely. Half an ounce of this. And that's it. So we are going to shake this over ice. And to serve the Mai Tai up, what you're going to want is something like an old-fashioned glass or a rocks glass, you know, something around that size and shape. I think the Mai Tai did have its own specialty glasses in the day, but I mean, if you want, you could serve it in those big, you know, extravagant glasses and, you know, that'd be just fine. But for most of the time, you're going to see it served like this. We are going to want to serve this over crushed ice. So we are going to strain this. So to garnish this, and the garnish is really important, there's a very traditional way to garnish up a Mai Tai, and it's actually really, really crucial to the whole overall experience of it. First, you're going to need a bunch of mint. You don't quite need this much, I'm just using this so it looks nice on camera. Wake up some of the oils in there by giving it a little bit of a slap, and then break off the excess stems, and then just place that gently into the glass. And then importantly, take one of your lime shells from earlier on, from when you squeezed for your lime juice, and place that just in front of the mint. And what the idea is that this symbolizes a little island and a palm tree in the background. And then finally, we need our straw. There you have it. An absolutely perfect Mai Tai, just the way I like to have them, and still pretty damn traditional, in keeping with the original recipe and our best approximations of things we don't quite have yet. So let's try it. Oh my god, wow. Yeah, no, that's absolutely incredible. And the reason why I said the mint was so important is because when you take a sip, you take in a big breath and you get this fresh mint all up in your sinuses and all in your olfactory. And that, in a way, actually really quite influences the flavor of the Mai Tai. It gives it a really nice fresh brightness and a really nice kick. Now, I know I use a few ingredients which may put some people off. Number one, for the Jamaican rums, I use a Smith & Cross. This is a little bit pricey, especially where I am in the United Kingdom. And I know for those in Australia, it's actually quite absurd to import this stuff over, so don't worry about that. Appleton Estate rum should be readily available, at least in most places that I know of. And to do 1 ounce of that instead of 1.5 ounces of the Appleton Estate and then 1.5 ounces of the Smith & Cross is absolutely fine. Do 1 ounce of the Appleton Estate and you're golden. In fact, if you can't get the other 2 rums, a demerara rum or a Martinique rum, just do 2 ounces of the Appleton Estate and that makes a fantastic Mai Tai. It really does. This stuff's great. I really, really like this rum. The Mai Tai is just that perfect combination of flavors. Of strong from the rum and the curacao, which is of course a brandy-based liqueur. So there's 2.5 ounces of spirit strength stuff in here, and if you're using the Smith & Cross or a strong Martinique rum, that could possibly be, you know, over 40% ABV for some of your ingredients. And the way all those flavors, no matter the strength of them, all play so nicely, never stepping on the other one's toes, is absolutely fantastic. It's perfectly sweet, perfectly balanced. Quite a sophisticated cocktail, but something that absolutely everyone can enjoy without, you know, ever feeling they're out of their depth with a cocktail like this. I mean, they're perfect for summer, for cooling down. God, this is just the best cooler. And for winter as well, when you want to pretend that it isn't cold and you want to be somewhere warm, then you drink one of these, and in a way it warms you up by imagining that you're in some far off other place, perfectly warm on a beach somewhere.